Welcome to the K Factor podcast, where we explore the real journey behind success, the struggle, the growth, and the lessons that shape who we become. I'm Rabbi Yehoshua Wordy, director of CHYE, a nonprofit dedicated to helping entrepreneurs and career seekers build the keli for their parnasa and a life of purpose. Shalom Aleichem, everybody. Welcome back to our third episode of the K Factor podcast. Baruch Hashem, the podcast has been received amazing. We're getting tremendous feedback, and I'm excited this week to be bringing to you another homegrown Crown Heights entrepreneur. I'm sitting here together with Yossi Gopin, who is famously known as the CEO and founder of KC Market, which is a chain of kosher grocery stores in South Florida that has taken South Florida by storm. And he's already been featured in many magazines, and I'm sure some of you have seen the write-up recently in COL magazine. And he's the real entrepreneur story. Somebody who grew up right here in Crown Heights, went to the local institutions and found his way into big business. And so today we're excited that he agreed to be with us and to share his journey. Shalom Aleichem, Yossi, and welcome to the K Factor podcast.
Thanks for having me. As soon as you asked me if I could join, I said yes, because I think you do great work. I don't know much about your organization. All I know is that you try to influence people in Crown Heights to become entrepreneurs. I think that's, like I said to you, I think that's holy work.
Thank you. Yes, very much so. That's our goal. And in fact, our audience that we're targeting, young people coming out of yeshiva, coming out of kollel, they're trying to figure out what they want to do, or they've started something, and that's who we're talking to. So without further ado, though, let's hear a little bit about you. We like to always start with rewind. You may be voracious, so tell us a little bit about yourself.
So, as you said, I grew up in Crown Heights. I went through the yeshiva, I went to Alatera, I went to Israel for a few years, for Chabad. Then I went on shluchus to Sydney, Australia. That was a great experience. I was there for 2 years. Shluchus 1 year, smicha another year. I worked in a shul as a managed a youth program there, a shul of Rabbi Maleki South at Synagogue. Had a big impact on me, learning organizational skills and how to manage. It was a very nice size program. And then I came back. I worked a little bit for my uncle in Great Neck, Chabad of Great Neck, Rabbi Yazinski. I implemented a similar program to what I was doing in Sydney. And then I got married. I started working for a real estate company, helping them manage and also find deals.
Locally in New York.
Yeah. I lived in Crown Heights, and it was. And then a friend approached me and asked me. He had a brother that was in Florida in a produce business, wholesale produce, and he basically had a truck, and he was buying merchandise in the market and delivering it to different businesses, and he needed some money to invest to manage. So I didn't have a lot of money myself, but I had access to credit. My credit was good. So basically I put up my credit cards to be able to make purchases. And that's what we did. The business was, started, it was going.
All right. So what got you, how did you feel safe to get involved in that? What gave you the security?
It's a good question. I mean, that's actually what made me end up moving down to Florida, because it did not end up going so well with him. And basically the business was not profitable. We were getting in the hole. We were getting deeper in the hole. And I made a decision to just come down to Florida and take things under control and manage it. And that's exactly what I did. I moved down here. I was newly married.
So just to clarify, so this person reached out to you. He took you on as a investment partner, then basically.
Correct.
So you had ownership in the company.
Yeah. Percentage ownership. And I moved down here, and that's exactly what I did. I started managing the business. I hired a person. The person that I invested in basically just got out, and I took it over, and I hired someone to run it. And I was hustling, going.
Let's unpack that already, by the way, because first of all, it is a common experience that many young people have, where they'll have a friend that has some business idea, and they'll turn to their friend and say, hey, maybe becoming a partner. And some people will swipe their credit card for their friends. What advice do you have for young guys in that vulnerable stage, so to say, about being smart about these types of things?
I mean, do a little bit more due diligence than I did, I guess. Homework on the market, homework on the person, homework on the process. But in my case, it was a blessing in disguise because that's what, I'm here today as a result of that. So
Uh-huh. Right. So you knew nothing about that industry when he reached out to you. It was all trust in him, so to say.
yes, that is correct.
So when things were going south, what did you feel like you could roll up your sleeves and take over, so to say, if you didn't have any experience?
Just learn on the job. It's not a very complicated business. It's really about, it wasn't a huge business. We're talking about it had maybe like 30, 40 customers, let's say. You go to the market, you shop the items, you have a worker with you, you develop a relationship with vendors, and then you deliver it. And if you're buying right, you could sell it, make a little money, and and you're fine. And you just also have to make sure that you get paid from your customers. That's a big.
Got it. So bottom line is that you jumped down to South Florida and you jumped in, and things started picking up from there.
So that business is actually it's not as the part where I just said make sure you get paid. That's a big if. So and you end up, even if people pay you, you could end up holding big balances for a long time until you get paid, and it's just you end up chasing your tail. But because of that business, because I was in the produce business, I was approached by someone connected me with someone else there was a retail farmers market, actually not too far from my Hallandale location. And this farmers market was around for decades, probably 30, 40 years. The people that owned it, they owned a property. And they sold the property to a New York developer. That whole area was under redevelopment. And this was almost like a tent, this farmer's market. And so they were getting out of the business, and the developer agreed to allow me to rent it while he was going through his permitting to develop the property. So I knew going into it that it was going to be a small, maybe 2-3 years at most. But it was a business that had real, revenue. It was doing, it had a big turnover of traffic. I remember like 500-600 people a day. So, which is pretty good. So I jumped in it. And so I really got out of the wholesale business and got into this business. This is back in 2000. I moved down to Florida in 2005. I got into this retail farmers market in 2006. I was in it. I was running it for 3 years to 2009.
So let's slow it down and just pull out the lessons from that story. So first of all, the distribution business, you were able to make it profitable. I mean, putting aside the collections part, I'm saying it became somewhat of a profitable business.
It was somewhat, but I wasn't in it for too long. I ended up being in it for another year.
Right.
It's not great. You don't need a lot to understand it, but I didn't see a future in it. That's
right.
The truth.
So you basically, from being in this industry, you saw this opportunity with the other side, and you jumped on it, even though you knew it was temporary, because you wanted this was like a segue into somewhere new that looked more profitable.
Exactly. Right.
Okay.
Same industry. So I understood business because I was in it already for a couple of years. So I understood the produce business, and I understood that it would be a profitable business. That retail farmers market, I saw the numbers, I saw the traffic that it had, and I thought it would. And it wasn't a big investment also. So like it was easy to get it because it was operating. Like it didn't need any major investment.
So there you are. Now you're running this business, and the clock is ticking because you know that you have a limited amount of time. So what happens next?
So as getting closer, I started looking around for opportunities, different places to what could I get into, and that's when the Hollywood location, my first Hollywood kosher store, became available. It was a store that also has been around for many years in Hollywood, for probably 20, 30 years before me. It was called Ilana's. The lady, you're from Florida, so maybe you remember that name.
I only know the Kosher.
You didn't go north of Aventura, probably.
No,
Hollywood is
no, never. I
very.
grew up in Miami Beach, and in my days, everything was down in Miami Beach. We didn't leave Miami Beach. We did shopping in Publix and the kosher foods from Brody's Be Kosher. That's what I remember.
Things have evolved since then, just a little bit. So this store was around for many years. They they ran into some issues with kashrus because the people that were running it were not religious. I don't know exactly the details, but basically people lost confidence and they lost hashgacha and they ended up closing down. And the space was vacant for probably a year and a half. And someone I know, said, "Why don't you check it out? Maybe this would be of interest to you." And I did. I met with the landlord. He was actually very nice, and he wanted someone to come in there, so he made it workable for me to get in there. We did, I did a renovation, not an extensive renovation. The place was old and run down, and it was also half the size of what it is today. But I just did what I could do to make it give it a little bit of a facelift. And it took me, probably it took a little longer than we hoped to finish the build out, which is normal. But then we finally opened. It was before Pesach of 2010. And then I was running that store. We closed down the farmers market and opened the store.
So you moved from produce into a complete supermarket.
Yeah. So this store at the time was a 7,000 square foot store. It wasn't also completely different because in the farmers market, there was a section that had groceries also. So I did know vendors, the vendors that supplied the groceries. Probably half the space of the farmers market was groceries. So we did carry a lot of kosher. A lot of the customers over there were Jewish, not necessarily religious, but Jewish. So it was kind of not a completely different business.
Got it. So what can you educate people on? From what I'm hearing, the supermarket industry is cutthroat and it's not for the faint of heart. What lessons do you have to share with people in the early stage, like making that transition into that?
Just roll with the punches. Don't get fazed by challenges. I guess that's one of the things that I have. I guess people tell me it's a little unique, but I don't get fazed by challenges. I don't get emotional about challenges. So I deal with it logically, and I try my best and be the best that I can be. And there were many challenges.
Right. Okay. So people love hearing about challenges. So we want to go there actually. But so tell us a little bit, from our experience at CHYE, a lot of people go blind into new businesses, and that could be a big hurdle, so to say. Like how are you able to navigate that?
Listen, that could be a big hurdle, but at the same time, I think that if people go in with more, at the same time, like I jumped into this produce business, I jumped into the farmers market business, I jumped into this kosher business. And if I did more research and more homework, I might have not jumped into it. So I think there's a balance. Yes, I should have probably done more research. But I think by definition, an entrepreneur is a kind of person that jumps into things.
Right, for sure. You have to have a certain risk tolerance. But Is there a lesson that you could, in other words, from that experience, talking to our audience here, is there a lesson that you could, like a guiding principle to help people make that decision if it's worth making that jump? Like what excited you that made you jump for it?
Listen, I always knew that I wanted to get into business, and I think people should jump. Obviously do as much research that you can, but I would encourage people to take that risk and jump in if you're that type of person. It's not for anyone, but I do think that there should be that. I don't think that anyone could do it, but I think that if there's a culture shift, I think there should be a culture shift of people doing more of that. I encourage that. Thank God. Listen, it took me many years and it was challenging. It was hard, but I stayed the course. And thank God things turned around, and what I have today is only as a result of the risks that I took.
Okay, so let's unpack that then, because that's the exciting journey.
I think other, if you go to Williamsburg, there's a major culture of people jumping into and running businesses. I think Crown Heights should have more of that.
Okay, look, you could encourage, yes. I think we do have it to a certain degree. Maybe we could.
We definitely have a lot more than we used to have.
Right. But you want to always jump in with your eyes open, so to say. There's crazy jumps and there's, obviously always everything's a shkacha pratis. If there's klalim, so to say, if there's anything to share in that journey to help people make the smart jump, that's really the the secret sauce. So there you are. You jumped into now this new business. You started this supermarket. How did you attract customers as soon as you opened the door? How did people come back to you?
So I did, did some marketing. It was a community where the store is Hollywood. There's a community that's there. There's a big young
Right.
Israel of Hollywood. There's a big Israeli community. It's much bigger today, but even at the time, there was probably about 700 families of young Israel, another few hundred families of Israelis, and then all the Chabad, all the Shluchim. Naturally, people, Chabad people would, want to support their own, and especially because I gave them the things that they were looking for. So, like for example, a Lubavitch meat and chicken, and our catering was a big part of our business. So we service a lot of shluchim with like kiddushim and catering, drop off catering and things like that. So yeah, that's
So since you're bringing that up, by the way, because the people have to realize that's two businesses wrapped into one. There's a grocery business, and then there's a catering business. So
absolutely.
you had both immediately as soon as you started?
Yeah. So that location had within it, so it was a 7,000 square foot location. The retail area was about 4,000 square feet. And then we had included was a section that was a bakery and a kitchen. And so I had a bakery staff team, and then I had a kitchen team.
With no prior experience.
That's correct.
Yeah, because that's getting catering right and getting the right taste in the foods to get
Right.
their happy customers.
But I inherited the kitchen team from that used to be there.
Uh-huh.
They went to work somewhere else, but then when I opened, they came to me, and I have a lot of that staff I still have today.
Awesome. So let's talk a little bit about marketing, and I guess in the early stages before we jump to how you grew the business, so to say. How did you attract customers? What type of marketing did you do? What lessons can you share with regards to how to market properly and bring customers through the door?
I mean, in my case, I didn't do at that time back then. I didn't do a crazy marketing campaign. Like it was more individual, like me, like really reaching out to people. For example, for catering, I would reach out to shluchim, and every shliach in South Florida, I would reach out to them, tell them try us out, and they tried us out, and that's how I developed relationships. In the bakery side, I developed a base of customers, some wholesale customers. I hired a salesperson to sell. Eventually, we moved our bakery offsite to an industrial bakery that I had since 2010, 2011. And I actually just moved out of that space recently and moved into a space that's triple the size in the bakery. And our kitchen also moved offsite to an offsite commissary. That Hollywood location, we expanded from 7,000 square feet to today 11,000 square feet, and we're about to start another expansion now because since we moved our kitchen out in the last year and a half or two, so now we're going to expand the store into that kitchen area. So it's going to end up being 11,000 pure retail.
So not only are you in groceries and catering, so you're your own bakery. And
Yes.
wow, okay.
So all the baked
Yeah.
goods in our store is from our bakery. In addition, I have a big part of our business is concessions, where we have these operators that are independent within our business, but they're exclusive only in our business. So they won't be in other stores, which was what makes us unique. So for example, I have a sourdough guy that, he makes sourdough breads, and it's very popular. His name is actually Lubavitcher, Mendel Rabashkin. We have, so that's also, we provide them the space to be able to operate. So yeah, we have.
So how did you develop that model? Everything was trial and error, or you went and studied supermarket, strategy? How were you able to build it up like that?
It was mainly trial and error. So so I started in 2010, the retail space. Like I said, it was 7,000 square feet. We took over an additional neighbors that went out of business on one side. So we did a major expansion and renovation. That took a long time. That was my first project. It was painful, but I learned a lot. So we did an expansion and renovation that I started in 2012. That's when I started the plans, and I finished it in 2019.
Wow.
6-7 years. But then we had a big like a grand reopening. Like we had a whole celebration, and that's what the store actually looked beautiful. And I attracted these different vendors to come in the store and operate booths inside the store because we had Baruch Hashem, we had good traffic, and it was attractive to them.
That's great. And at what point did you realize that you could expand by opening new stores?
So once I felt comfortable that I had a good business model and we were operating, we finished that expansion renovation. It was in 2019, right before COVID. It was November of 2019. COVID came in March of 2020. But after that expansion renovation, that store really, Baruch Hashem, it took off and it, beyond my expectations. And thank God it was doing very well. So I saw that I had a good business model, and I was actually approached by the two other locations. I didn't find them; they found me. The first one in Hallandale, it was a developer building a huge development, two towers, 250 units in each tower, and in front of the towers he has a commercial. So he wanted a kosher store in that development to attract kosher buyers for his condos, and we made a deal. That was also a full build out, a 10,000 square foot store. But after doing the build out in Hollywood and learning everything that I learned over 6 years, I understood what it takes and how to do it and what to do. So I felt comfortable taking it on. I started that project. As I was doing that project, I was approached by by a broker for the Boynton location. It was a Publix that moved out, and the landlord wanted a kosher store in there, and they made me an offer that I couldn't refuse. We took that one on and we developed, but we built out both of them almost at the same time.
So basically, you came up with like they call it in the industry like a franchise floor plan. Like you were able to just replicate. Like here's the sauce, just do this, and like that's the
Yeah,
type of
except that it wasn't a franchise; it was my own. But
right, exactly. But like
but the
basically
concept,
like you have
yes, the
your
concept. I
right.
replicated my concept in the
Right.
two other stores. Correct.
Got it. Got it. So that's very exciting. And we're sort of jumping a little bit all over the place, but now that you have 3 locations, how does that managing 3 locations, how do you deal with that?
So, um, it's a great question. Baruch Hashem, I have a good team. Like I said, a lot of the management people have been with me for many years, and each location has its own. We have a management infrastructure. So each department has has its own manager. The store has a manager, and that's how I'm able to manage. I can't be everywhere at once. I deal with the managers.
Let's unpack that if you don't mind, because that's something a lot of people struggle with. In other words, a lot of people are like micromanagers and they have a very hard time pulling back and being able to give the space for other people. And a lot of people have a hard time finding the right people to do it in the way that you like it to be. What's your secret sauce when it comes to that?
Give the managers freedom as long as as I see how they're performing, how the department is performing. I'm not going to get involved in the micro details of nitty gritty of the day-to-day operation. I'll allow them to do that, and we just monitor how it's doing. And now if it's not doing well, then I have to get involved and figure out why and what we could do to make it better.
Right. Okay. You have like criteria for how you hire people? You have it's like
It's just really by gut, to be honest. But the common denominator between our managers are they have good work ethic, they care, and they manage in the same way, similar, because, for example, our meat department is managed by one person. He can't be in 3 stores at the same time, but he'll do the buying for all 3 stores, but he has a manager in each butcher room that he manages. So it's the same concept. It's like a pyramid kind of.
right. Understood. And how do you obviously customer experience, how are you able to give people what's your philosophy on how you could make sure that people get the same experience no matter which store they go into? Is there a type of playbook that you created?
A lot of secrets you're making me reveal over here. But
Well, we want people to learn from,
yeah,
to
for sure. For sure. I'm kidding. But I mean, really, it boils down to customer service. We're all about making the customer happy, giving them the best experience possible. The people that are managing the customer service areas, they'll bend over backwards to please the customers, and people come back. They like it.
So let me ask you, this is, I'm going to jump off a little bit to something which maybe you could share insights we've dealt with at CHY over the years. People come up with food concepts. Like we have somebody who's developing this brand of potato chips, and we have someone that they think they have the next best secret sauce for a chocolate bar. Does the kosher market work like the non-kosher market? Like in terms of they want to break into your store. What do they have to do to, what does a kosher product have to do to be zoichet to get on the shelves of a large chain of grocery store?
So we're really data driven. So if a new item will come to us, we're always happy to test a new item. We'll test it out, and it has to prove itself. So that's what it boils down to. It's not too complicated. We let the customer decide.
So you'll give anyone a chance with some shelf space if they come in with something intriguing.
Absolutely, yeah. We're always happy. We're looking for new items. We're always ahead on the new items.
Mm-hmm.
Whenever our suppliers and vendors are offering new items, we'll always take them. Try it out. If it does well, we go heavier on it.
Got it. And what's trends-wise? What's hot in the Jewish community right now? Like what food trends?
Well, like I said before, sourdough is a big
Right.
one. We also just the same person, Mendel Rabashkin, he also just started like a health bar in our Hallandale location, and he's going to open it in the other locations also eventually. But this is like beautiful acai bowls, smoothies, and healthy but delicious. I think that's
where the kosher consumer is heading nowadays, you're saying?
Yeah, definitely seeing a trend in that direction.
Got it. Let's talk a little bit about competition. I mean, right, the Jewish supermarket world has exploded. I guess I still recall the first supermarket that was like a branded supermarket was all the rage was Pomegranate, years ago here in New York. We actually had him, he came and spoke, the owner, years ago, one of our first events in Crown Heights. We had the owner of Pomegranate come and speak.
Vander.
Yes, Mr. Vander. But it's become like in the Jewish community now, like there's all these big chains, and they do all this branded marketing and then all these experiences. How do you? What's your secret to dealing with competition?
So listen. We have our fair share of competition over here too. Maybe not as cutthroat yet as New York, but I'm sure it's coming. But the way I see it is, I have to be the best that I can be, and that really means really making an effort, working hard, managing things, and the rest is really up to God. So
let's talk about challenges, and overcoming them. What was like a serious challenge you experienced, and how did you navigate it?
So in this business, like you said before, it is, I didn't have a lot of my own capital. It's a capital intensive business. Capital was always a challenge for me, especially way back at the beginning. I dealt with it day to day, especially at the beginning. It was very tough, but I leaned on friends and family that helped me out, and Baruch Hashem, it paid off. But I would say, to answer your question, that was definitely my biggest challenging area.
Was there ever like a setback that happened where you thought things were going to fall, but somehow that setback became a pivot in your business?
Look, I mean, I was running this business since 2010 to 2019, and it was not up to 2019. It was not a very profitable business. So every day it was a challenge. Every day I was grinding. It was hard, but I kept the course, stayed the course, never gave up. I had a vision of what I wanted to do, and I made a decision that I would not give up until I finished. And then once I finished and I finally reached the goal that I wanted to reach, and then it wasn't profitable, I would drop it. But thank God, it exploded after I reached that goal.
So what gave you the fortitude though to go down that road? Like what kept on driving you?
It's really just that I envisioned what I wanted, and I would not give up until I got there. And it was just not an option. It was hard. It was painful, but thank God I could now say it was worth it.
Were there people that you turned to for advice? Did you have, or you All solo.
It was, yeah, no, it was, I mean, I didn't have, it was on my own. Yeah.
Okay. Did you ever do like saying in terms of building, supermarkets? There must be industry conventions and stuff. Did you spend time like researching and studying the
Sure.
industry?
I'm always reading books about the industry. I've gone to conventions, to shows. Yeah, I'm always reading about, I'm constantly learning, even today.
Is there a saying for people that are listening to this and want to get some sort of inspiration? Is there a book or any type of resource you would tell people to look into to get ideas or chizuk?
The book I'm reading right now is by Guy Fieri, I think, and the name is Unreasonable Customer Service. It's something unreasonable customer service, something in that to that effect. I just started it, so I don't have the details, but I just read a few pages talking about, he had the top restaurant in New York City. It was called 11 Madison Avenue, and how they went out of their way to please customers. So I mean, that's just what I'm reading right now. But I'm always reading different books. I read on my industry. I read the founder of Trader Joe's recently. Read his book, very enlightening.
So so unpacking this and turning this into practical lessons, so to say, what would you, looking back, what traits would you credit with giving you the ability to accomplish what you've accomplished so far? Like, what would you say are things that people should work on themselves in order to be able to have that right attitude to do these types of things?
Like I said before, I really think that it boils down to Chabad word Moech Shalat Al Alev. So taking things in stride, like controlling your emotions, goes a long way. Not getting overwhelmed by the day-to-day challenges and the grind. And I learned I love a sicha in Chelik Lamed Vav Afchei Neida Adavar. Like, I mean, being positive. That, I mean, to this day, whenever I feel, I think every entrepreneur should probably learn that sicha at least once a month, because it
Which
just,
parsha? Do you remember? Shemot.
I learned that. I saw that Shalmert Chairabashkin was a big proponent of that sicha, and I learned it after that, and it's really amazing.
Okay. Any crazy hashgacha prata story that happened that you could
I
share?
actually have one.
Yeah.
So I had investors that came into my business early on, and as I was doing the expansion renovation, they did not have as much belief as I had in the business, and they wanted to get out. And I wanted to buy them out. So I was looking for financing for banks to help me buy them out and finish my construction and renovation project. So I literally went from bank to bank, rejection after rejection. I went to the big banks, and I had a contact relationship. I went through the whole application process, and I had a certain amount that I needed to be able to make it work, to be able to pay them off and finish. So I went to big banks. I went to small community banks. I went to through brokers, business brokers. One broker was able to give me half of what I needed. Finally, at least 10 banks that I went to, I was rejected from. I was just rejected from I was rejected from Chase that day. And I didn't have anywhere else to go. Like, I didn't know where to turn. And I remember that day I was in a meeting in my bakery with the bakery manager, and all of a sudden I get a call from someone in the young Israel community. I knew the guy for many years. His name is Ira Rothstein, and he passed away recently, a couple years ago. But this guy, he was in finance, but he was a real estate developer, but he also did like small business finance on the side. I never even thought about it. So I pick up the phone, and he says, Yossi? I say, yeah, what can I remember when he was calling me, I was in a meeting. I wasn't sure if I should pick up. Should I interrupt the meeting? But I said, okay, I'll pick up. So he says, oh, I'm calling the wrong Yossi. I'm calling Yossi. I'm trying to reach there's a car dealer, Yossi, that I'm trying to reach. And as he's telling me this, I said, you do small business finance, right? So he says, yeah, sure. I said, it happens to be I'm in the middle of application process. trying to get a loan for, to buy out my investors and this amount. And would you see if maybe you could do something with it? So I said, he says, yeah, sure. Send a package. I said, can I just give you the whole, what I just finished with Chase? I'll give you I'm not even changing anything. I'm sending you the whole package. He says, okay. And this is, he's the person that got me the financing to buy out my investors, finish the construction project. It was amazing.
That is amazing. While we're on the topic of investors, what wisdom do you tell people about taking on investment for a business? Are you a fan of investors? What would you tell people?
Listen, I don't think there's a right or wrong. I mean, every situation is unique and different. But yeah, I mean, if you need investment, you need investment.
Is there a right way of taking investment, like that makes it better than other ways?
I think it should just be clear. Everything should be clear. In the agreements that you make, what the expectation is, and how things are structured, as clear as possible, so there's no misunderstandings and no surprises. But ultimately, it's there's a risk involved, and you just have to be straight up and as honest as possible.
Business partnerships. Are you a sole owner or you have partners?
I do have some minor investors.
So you're able to make decisions without having
Right.
to deal with you find that helpful in terms of running the
Yeah,
business?
yeah. I mean, and the investors that I have, they trust. There's a level of trust. They've been with me for a while, so yeah.
Baruch Hashem. So what's on the horizon for KC?
Listen, we're trying to absorb everything that we did in the last few years. We've been building out of our Boynton location. A big part of our business is our website, and we do deliveries to very remote areas on a weekly basis. I mean, some more remote, some less remote, but we have weekly deliveries all the way up to North Florida, Orlando, Jacksonville. We go up to the Panhandle. We go down to Key West. We go up to Atlanta every week. Savannah. There's a lot of that. And we're developing more and more routes. So that's an area that we're focusing on, and we're constantly innovating and trying to find new concepts within the store, in the concessions. So we have a few new concepts coming in that area. Yeah. We have 2 new restaurants that in Boynton that are still not finished. 2 full service restaurants. You have 4,000
You're
square
going to
feet.
be on site. You're saying in the property.
Right. So it's independent. It has its own entrance, its own back, its own kitchen. It's 4,000 square foot restaurants. One of them is going to be a bagel boss. The other one's going to be a full service, all you can eat Chinese buffet.
Wow. Okay. So I was there in the store. I guess those weren't up and running yet.
Right.
Just
A lot of
just yeah. Just out of not exactly the discussion, but just South Florida. So you're seeing the expansion continue to move. Like right now, you're up in Boynton, which is like north. You're seeing the Jewish community is pushing now further and further up north. Is that a
Well, there
pattern?
are pocket communities right now up north. For example, Jacksonville probably has, I think, I honestly, I never spent time there, but I have a truck that goes there every week.
All right, but Jacksonville is really far. What I'm saying is that again, I grew up in Florida in the '80s. Right here we are, 2026, and we've had this massive expansion from Miami Beach all the way now to Boynton. From what you're seeing, the march of Orthodox Jewish communities is continuing up north. Like you're seeing, like
I mean, Boynton is probably the most north of a frum community at the moment, and I believe in it because, and that's why I'm invested here, because I didn't just invest here because of the community that's there right now. I believe that there's a future growth because housing is relatively reasonable over there compared to Boca, which is 20 minutes south. People are priced out of that market, so they're moving to Boynton. I believe in that area. I think, but I mean, you have a Satmar community in West Palm Beach, not West, and no, they're West Palm Beach. Sorry, so they come to the Boynton store also. There are a lot of visitors are going to Palm Beach area, but in terms of a frum community, I think that's the furthest north at the moment. There is a frum community, a Satmar from opening up by Okeechobee, Lake Okeechobee. I don't know.
how far is that from Boynton to there?
That's actually a 2-hour drive from Boynton
2 hours.
north. Yeah,
Wow. So that's going to be a whole new. Where would they fly into if they had to?
probably Palm Beach. Yeah, Palm Beach.
Wow. Got it. So this has been an amazing discussion over here. I mean, your journey is
I hope I was
fantastic.
inspiring enough. I don't know.
Ultimately, it's for the listeners to decide how
Yeah.
inspiring or not inspiring. But I mean, one thing which is for sure is, I mean, the timing of your journey is like matches perfectly with the explosion of growth in South Florida. I mean, it's just that they always say there's the idea, and then is making sure the idea comes at the right time.
Yeah. Being in the right place at the right time.
Right. Just a
That's
just
definitely part of my Hashgacha Pratis.
right. Right. That's incredible. So thank you very much for sharing this.
My pleasure.
And we want to wish you continued Hatzlacha,
Take
God
care.
willing. You know, my parents live close to your Boyton location, so I'm sure I'll be back again. For those listening, I had their falafel, and I thought it was excellent. If you need good
One of our
falafel,
new concepts, a
yeah,
falafel booth, and he's doing great.
Baruch Hashem, Baruch Hashem. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yes,
And
continued
continue
Hatzlacha.
your great work that you're doing. We should
Thank
have
you,
many more successful entrepreneurs coming out of Crown Heights.
thank you very much. We're looking forward to it, and hope we'll continue the conversation one day. Thank you very much.